I've never met anyone like you.
The art of seduction can mask a woman's devious intent.
Give us a call.
I will.
Teen sisters seduce their way to murder.
They just don't seem to have any heart or soul.
We can't keep doing this.
A wanton woman won't tolerate broken promises.
Be married.
The tragedy that unfolded was bound to happen.
What?
They were too hot to handle.
You're married? You okay, George?
And a loving housekeeper wants more than a Christmas bonus.
The only motive was pure, unadulterated greed.
These deadly women won't walk down the aisle. Instead, they bury the boyfriend. On the streets of Chicago in 2000, 17-year-old Regina DeFrancisco and her 16-year-old sister, Margaret, have everything going for them but common sense.
They got caught up in a problem there, which a lot of kids did, which was gangs. These weren't stupid girls. These were actually very bright.
Some young women are attracted to bad boys and gang members because it looks exciting to them.
Come back. Oh, yeah.
The main connection with the gangs was Regina. She got involved with a Latin Kings gang member.
After that, everything in their life changed. They started skipping school, their grades dropped.
The only thing Regina is learning about is the drug trade.
How many bags, babe?
Not enough.
Regina was starting to cross over to the more dangerous side of life.
Her boyfriend, Johnny, teaches her all he knows.
Open up! Take it to the bathroom. Take it to the bathroom. Take it to the bathroom. Get down! Down right now! Get down!
The couple is arrested for dealing cocaine.
Johnny, what's happening?
Don't say a word, baby.
It was in small packages and a large enough amount that it was clear that she was selling it for profit.
Her mother, who raises the sisters to know right from wrong, is not happy.
Any idea how much money it cost me to bail you out of jail?
For drug dealing.
Their mom and their family was trying to do the very best that they could.
You're going to have to pay me back. Every single penny. Do you understand me?
Regina and Margaret, by their own admission, had a near-perfect life growing up.
Fine.
Mom thinks the girls are listening, but Regina's love and loyalty is now with the gang.
Apparently, as good as their home life was, their new associates offered them something their mom didn't. They became their new family. The gang became more important than their values.
Mom still wants the bail money repaid. And Regina thinks she's found the answer. 22-year-old Oscar Velasquez.
Oscar was a decent guy. There's no criminal activity. There's no arrest record with him. He came from Mexico. He worked hard.
Nice car.
Oh, you like? I just picked it up a few weeks ago.
Brand new.
Yeah, brand new.
Regina saw Oscar as a patsy with a wallet.
Maybe you should take us for a drive sometime.
Regina starts dating Oscar. He has no idea she has a gang boyfriend.
They dated for about 3 weeks. When it became apparent to Regina that Oscar had some money, it took a different turn. She tried to figure out ways to get the money.
Regina has a sting in mind. She recruits Margaret to help.
What's the matter?
It's Regina.
She tells Oscar his new love is locked away and in need of bail money.
The girls concocted a plan to get the money. They wanted to get $1,000 out of Oscar.
So it's $1,000 for the bail?
Oscar, you're too
No,
kind to
no,
us
it's
to
for your
continue.
sister, no.
Regina and Margaret played Oscar like a violin. They knew he was a trusting, warm-hearted, generous person.
It's all a lie.
I can't believe it! I know, it's so much money.
Instead of using the money to pay back her mom,
I'm so proud of this girl.
Regina gives it to her boyfriend.
She and her boyfriend went out and bought an old car with it.
This is not an uncommon thing for women that are involved with guys in gangs.
When Regina pretends to get out of jail, Oscar expects his cash back.
He asked for the money back. And Margaret and Regina says, well, you know what? We're not going to give you the money back, but we've got something better. How about a threesome?
It's an offer too good for a young man to refuse. In Chicago, in 2000, teenage sisters Regina and Margaret DeFrancisco swap good grades for bad boys, street gangs, drugs, and deceit. They con 22-year-old Oscar Velasquez into loaning them $1,000. But they don't want to pay him back. The sisters convinced school friend, 15-year-old Veronica Garcia, to get them a gun.
Her friend Margaret kept saying to her, "Can you get a gun? Can your boyfriend get a gun for us?"
You planning on killing somebody?
No. My friends just want to scare some good.
We want to scare Oscar and get some money from him.
But the sisters have a more deadly plan.
So if you shoot him from there,
And he should land about there.
Margaret and Regina did a good amount of planning for this murder. They put a tarp down on the floor to protect it from blood.
On June 6th, 2000, Oscar arrives at their home on the promise of a sexual adventure.
When Oscar arrived and Margaret asked him, "Does anyone know you're here?" it should have been a warning sign. But all Oscar saw was two beautiful young women, not two potential killers.
Regina goes to the basement, and Oscar's told to go help her.
go with Regina.
The sisters play out their well-rehearsed roles.
And Regina was already telling him to follow her downstairs.
Down here!
As he went down to that basement where Regina was waiting for him, he had no idea that Margaret was behind him with a gun.
You have to have a very cold heart. You have to have absolutely no feelings.
God, that was loud.
Margaret shot him in the back of the head. She didn't want to have a face-to-face confrontation with him. She didn't want any chance of him resisting. She had no history of violence, right up to the time she pulled a trigger and killed someone.
The way she described poor Oscar is that he fell down like a baby, and that where she had shot him, his brains were oozing out like cheese.
The minute Oscar's body hits that plastic sheet, the girls are on top of him, searching his body for whatever they could get.
They took his wallet and all of the money. It appeared there was $1,200 in his wallet in cash. They took his sterling silver chain that he was wearing.
What have you done?
Veronica realizes that this is not just a fright night for Oscar.
Shut up and do something! Get the drugs!
After they searched his body for all the valuables, they wrap him up in the sheet.
The sisters force Veronica to help dispose of Oscar's body.
They wait until it gets dark outside, and the three of them carry his body. This is witnessed by their next-door neighbor and yells to them.
Hey guys, what are you doing? We're just moving a few things.
And they stuff him in the trunk and drive off.
Committing murder is easy. Getting rid of the body is more complicated. They drive to a vacant lot.
Margaret has brought with her a bottle of nail polish remover. And showing her youth, she thinks that she's going to be able to destroy the body with this.
They're like Dumb and Dumber, these two. Using this fingernail polish remover to try to torch a body, it's absolutely ludicrous and absurd.
The flames are impressive, but short-lived.
A little bit of nail polish fluid is not going to incinerate a body enough to not leave evidence of who it is.
When Oscar's body is found the next day, police find an obvious clue.
When police discovered Oscar's body and realized that he had been partially burned with nail polish remover, they knew they should be looking for teenage girls and not professional hitmen.
Regina and Margaret make another mistake. They drive around in Oscar's car and are spotted by his brother.
He identifies both Regina and Margaret as the girls he saw driving his brother's car a few days after his brother disappeared. Regina and Margaret are brought into the police station within maybe a week to 10 days, and both of them deny seeing him, they deny any involvement whatsoever, and they're let go.
It looks like the sisters are home free. There is no evidence connecting them to the crime. But there is a witness, 15-year-old Veronica, and she can't lie very well.
She tries a very simple lie and is easily talked out of that by the police, and she eventually tells the whole story. By now, over 10 days have passed, and Regina and Margaret flee.
The sisters stay on the run for 2 years, splitting up and moving to different states. It takes a national TV campaign to finally track them down. Both sisters are tried and convicted of first-degree murder. At the trial, the only remorse Regina shows is the fact that she was caught.
She didn't cry when she talked about poor Oscar lying there bleeding on their floor. She didn't cry when she talked about how they set his body on fire. The only thing that bothered her is, oh, poor me, what was going to happen to me?
In 2004, Regina DeFrancisco is sentenced to 35 years. The shooter, Margaret, receives 46. The sisters are together in the Dwight Correctional Center in Illinois.
The entire motivation for this crime was profit. This was a murder for money.
These girls didn't grow up on the wrong side of the tracks. They are well-loved teens with bright futures ahead of them. But they choose gang mentality, where money and power is worth more than a life.
What is most shocking about this is their age. And 16, 17 years old, getting involved in this kind of criminal activity is just heartbreaking.
I'm very glad we caught them when we did. If they were able to concoct this sort of a scheme at 16 and 17 years old, what would you be able to do in 5 or 10 years when you're older and have more experience?
An affair can be wildly exciting.
They were too hot to handle.
But if a woman's love turns to revenge,
she became more desperate.
the boyfriend can end up in the firing line. In 1863, Virginia City is a booming silver town in Nevada. 26-year-old Laura Fair is cashing in, running a busy hotel. An independent woman with 3 disastrous marriages behind her.
She married at 16. He died within a year. Second husband was a brutal man. She married a third husband. He committed suicide.
I don't think Laura's string of 3 failed marriages in succession really meant that she was unlucky. She was really bad at choosing a decent partner.
But Laura hasn't given up on love. When wealthy San Francisco lawyer, 47-year-old Alexander Crittenden rents a room, there is an instant attraction.
Mr. Crittenden, we've been expecting you.
Please call me Alexander. Ma, you're an absolutely beautiful woman.
Within months, the two are lovers.
I've never met anyone like you. Anyone.
They fell wildly, madly in love. They just couldn't get enough of each other day and night. Mostly night, I think.
I love you so much.
I love you so much, too.
Laura and Alexander's attraction to each other was enormously intense. It was a highly charged sexual relationship.
The lovers spell out their devotion in more than 100 raunchy love letters.
One of her letters said, "You shall kiss me in every corner of the room. Hold me in your arms in each chair. Lie by me on the sofa. Hang over me on the piano. Sleep with me in my bed."
At the time, for a woman to be writing letters, talking about any sexual topics was very improper.
Are we to be married?
One day we shall be married.
You always say that.
I promise you.
He was pledging undying love to Laura Fair, and of course she wanted marriage.
But Alexander is keeping a secret.
Look, I need to tell you something, and that is...
He wasn't quite forthcoming about his marital status.
I need to tell you that I am married. Have children.
What? You're married?
Listen to me.
Big complicating factor that he had a wife and now 7 children.
Who are you, Alex?
I love you. I've said that to you, and you love me, okay? Shh, shh.
There is a good reason Alexander chooses to reveal the truth now.
I brought you your tea.
His family has come to town,
You're too good to me, Alexander.
and they are living right next door to Laura's hotel.
Alexander wanted it all. He wanted the wife next to him in bed at night, his children with him, and he wanted his mistress right next door.
To Clara, he is a devoted husband, even making her special nightcaps.
Here's your
Frequently, he would give her a sleeping potion and then sneak back over to spend the night with Laura. Arriving back at the home he had rented for Mrs. Crittenden, just in time for her awakening in the morning.
Drugging his wife so she'd sleep soundly and then going next door and making love to Laura all night? That's incredibly bold behavior.
For 7 years, Alexander lives his dream life, a wife
Thank you, Alexander.
and a lover at his disposal.
Mrs. Crittenden was either naive or dim-witted because she never seemed to catch on over the 7 years that her husband was having an affair with Laura Fair.
But Laura is tiring of being the other woman. She wants a ring on her finger.
She kept begging him, tell your wife about me, leave her, marry me.
When will this end?
He had money, and in addition to that, we have to assume that he was a fantastic lover.
I think Alexander may have been as deluded about Laura's love for him as she was deluded that he would ever leave his wife.
After 7 years of being strung along, Laura has had enough.
We can't keep doing this.
We won't. I'll talk to her. Trust me, okay?
They were setting in motion, really, what would end up being a tragedy.
Will we ever be married?
One day, my love.
Will we?
We will.
The tragedy that unfolded was bound to happen. They were too hot to handle.
By 1870, Alexander Crittenden's perfect love triangle is getting messy.
Call me Alexander.
His longtime mistress, 33-year-old Laura Fair, loves him, but is running out of patience.
I think Laura would do anything Alexander wanted, and she pinned all her hopes on him leaving his wife someday.
But after 7 years, Laura gives up on Alexander. She finds a new man, Jesse Snyder, who is happy to make her an honest woman.
What do you want, Alexander?
What do I want? Who is it, sweetheart?
Mr. Crittenden, I don't believe you've met my husband, Mr. Snyder.
This drove Crittenden absolutely mad. But it did, however, put Laura Fair on an equal footing with Crittenden because they were then both married.
But Laura, I love you. You know that.
Leave your wife.
Laura!
After having 2 women for so long, Alexander can't cope with losing access to Laura. He convinces her to divorce her new husband and promises to do the same.
I'd have to say that Laura was one of the most gullible women that you can imagine.
It's another hollow promise. Alexander stays with his wife.
I'll be back.
You've got to leave your wife.
That's a complicated legal process. Please, please.
Do it now.
Laura!
No.
When Laura realized that she had divorced her husband, and Crittenden again did not divorce Clara, she went out and bought a gun.
Alexander didn't just lead Laura on. He made her jump through hoops. That's cruel, especially in a love relationship. I wouldn't turn my back on the lover.
Laura is humiliated, heartbroken, and armed.
Get out. Get out.
They had an argument, and she was so furious that as he left, she fired at him and missed. And he convinced himself that she missed because she really didn't want to kill him.
Most men would run a mile, but not Alexander. He convinces Laura that he has finally divorced his wife. She believes him, but not for long.
Laura found out that not only was Alexander Crittenden not divorced or separated, that to her was just a total betrayal of everything that he had promised her.
This sent Laura into a state of frenzy.
On the night of November 3rd, 1870, Laura will get her revenge. It's a Crittenden family outing on a paddle steamer with an uninvited guest in the shadows.
And when she saw the affection that he showed his wife, she approached and she pulled a gun out. And she fired once into the heart.
I don't think Laura Fair was essentially a violent woman, but she must have had a violent streak buried in her somewhere. And when the time came to kill, she did not hesitate.
I believe the fact that Laura shot Alexander in front of his wife was not an accident. The wife was meant to see it. She wanted the world to see that she was killing him.
After she shot him, it was almost as if she'd come out of a trance. She just sat down quietly, she put the gun down, and she said, "Yes, I did it. He ruined my life," and waited to be arrested.
Alexander went to great lengths and many lies to get Laura to do what he wanted. Some would say Alexander got exactly what he deserved.
Laura is charged with first-degree murder.
This case became a national sensation. It had everything. It had sex, murder, intrigue.
In June 1871, Laura's found guilty and is the first woman in California sentenced to death. But on appeal, she's acquitted on the grounds of temporary insanity brought on by female problems.
Ailments that could force an otherwise sane woman to commit a horrible act. One of them was a tilted womb. The defense attorney asked one of the doctors, could a tilted womb be caused by excessive sexual activity? And he said, yes, I suppose it could.
In those days, men thought women were driven to be crazy because of their female hormones and tipped uterus, because they couldn't comprehend that a woman might simply get so angry that she would seek revenge by murder.
Laura is a free woman, but is ostracized by society. She lives a long and lonely life. At age 82, she dies penniless and is buried in an unmarked grave.
The great mystery of this romance, of course, is why Laura Fair put up with so much from Crittenden. You can only say that she was madly in love with this man.
This is a murder motivated by revenge, and that story is as old as time. Laura got away with murder, plain and simple.
When a woman has a gentle touch,
she looked like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth.
It's easy to hide her wicked ways.
When there's a financial gain, there's no stopping someone like Vicki.
And loved ones can be burned. Melbourne, Australia, 2002.
So you get on? We do, yes, we get on.
In a cafe, 44-year-old Vicki Afandis is hoping for more than a coffee. She is looking for a job.
Do you think you might need a housekeeper?
She's heard all about her friend's ex-husband, George Marcetta, and thinks he would be an ideal employer.
Why don't you give him a call? Well, I might do that.
It seems that she had orchestrated the meeting after making friends with his ex-wife, and she had learned that he had money.
Although she's college educated, Vicki lands the job as a maid.
She went to college, she studied business. Vicki Afandis could probably have done very well in business for herself.
But Vicki finds that the right client can make housekeeping quite rewarding. Particularly a wealthy single man like George.
Made you some lovely tea. Great. And I've got something special for you.
George was, from all accounts, a lovely, generous, warm, trusting man.
The 56-year-old runs a successful house painting business, owns his home, and several luxury cars.
Where would you be without me, hey? Look at that all over you.
George was a desirable target for Vicki because of his wealth. He was an easy target because of his trust and love.
Soon, Vicki means much more to George than a clean set of sheets.
They became friends, then they became lovers. She was someone who could look after him, take care of him. Every single man needs that when they're separated from their wife after many years.
I think Vicki played into George's loneliness, his desire to be with someone. She flattered him. He was smitten with her.
Vicki finally puts her business studies to use, looking after George's accounts. He trusts her to do the right thing, but he is wrong.
Vicki had a plan, and Vicki was very patient. She slowly worked her way into George's life and his heart.
She starts transferring his assets into her name. Within 2 years, Vicki controls every aspect of George's life.
Oh, really? That's great.
Yeah, double digits.
She'd done all this. She'd managed to get his house in her name, get her name on his company, all in space of about 2 years.
George, I have something for you to sign.
Oh, really?
I think Vicki was able to manipulate and deceive George as well as she did because he saw her as a sweet woman and not a deadly woman.
The couple is inseparable, except at night. Vicki insists on her own home and uses George's money to buy it.
So even though he'd paid for most of it, it was entirely in her name.
Gentle George is no match for Vicki's cunning ways.
Everyone who knew George Marcetta just thought that he was a lovely man and that the relationship was genuine.
You okay, George?
When there's a financial gain, there's no stopping someone like Vicki.
With George's business affairs now sorted, there is something else Vicki needs to attend to.
It wasn't enough that Vicki enjoyed George's money. She wanted to do it without him.
In Melbourne, Australia, George Marcetta falls for his housekeeper, 46-year-old Vicki Afandis.
Big without me, hey?
He trusts her completely, but she is cooking his books and dishing up something far more potent.
food tasted funny. Quite often after Vicki had been over and had cooked him dinner that he felt a bit strange or ill. He had no idea that it wasn't just bad cooking or bad food, that she was actually slowly almost poisoning him.
I think I have to go to bed.
Yeah, you should go, George.
She is using a powerful sedative.
Here, let me help you.
Oxazepam is a drug that belongs to a class called benzodiazepines. They're used to slow down the brain.
Come on, George.
Once you fall asleep, it keeps you there.
On September 8th, 2004, Vicki prepares George his favorite meal, pork rolls and noodles.
You like it?
Great.
Excellent. Does it taste good?
Oh, it's great. You can do these again.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Vicki's final act of love and affection and devotion to George was to cook his favorite meal, and then she poisoned it.
Tastes good, doesn't it?
Really good.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Okay, George. Just gonna have a little sleep now. Everything's gonna be all right.
Vicki lovingly helps George to bed and gets down to her real business, involving industrial quantities of flammable liquid and mountains of paper.
After George was unconscious, Vicki doused the house with 28 liters of kerosene.
Vicki then completes the couple's nightly ritual of sending each other text messages. But tonight, it is a one-way conversation.
Every night she would send him a goodnight text message. He would send a return goodnight text message. So this was something that they did on a regular basis. She did the same thing that night.
George is drugged and helpless.
When she lit the fire, when she set all the other fires in the house and left fires in that house, he was alive.
It's certainly possible that he awakened because he was being burned alive. She made sure that everything she did made the likelihood of him surviving and escaping virtually impossible.
Vicki drives to her own home, just 5 minutes away.
Vicki drugs George, sets the house on fire, and calmly leaves. That tells me all I need to know about Vicki Afandis.
The fire is quickly spotted. George's neighbor calls emergency services and Vicki.
George is in there. That's his car. George is in there. That's his car.
You sure?
Yes, yes, George.
She gets to the house, she tries the whole crocodile tears, oh, let me in, let me in.
That's his car.
Despite all of her meticulous preparation, Vicki almost blows it. She talks too much.
She not only said George must be in there, but she said, oh, he's been killed, he's been murdered, and I know who did it.
I know who did this. I know who did this.
Please, come back.
Talking about murder before a body is found is unusual, and so is Vicki's next move. She leaves the scene.
The fireman thought that was odd too, because if she honestly believed that her lover was inside the house, that he might be trapped, that he might be dead, you would think that she would insist on waiting till they found out, but she just went home.
Investigators soon establish it is not an accidental fire.
Arson investigators look at a house as carefully as I look at a body. When they were able to determine that accelerant had been poured in 7 different areas, they were able to tell that the fire had been deliberately set.
You owe me that money. I do not owe you money. I came from there.
Vicki tries to make the police's work easy. She gives them a suspect, a former business partner of George's.
They'd had a falling out, And so Vicki decided to utilise that falling out to cast guilt on him as early as possible.
How much does he owe you?
7 grand.
She names a suspect, but doesn't do her homework.
If you're going to frame someone, you need to make sure that they have no alibi for the time that you are framing them.
Her alleged killer has an ironclad alibi for that night.
Vicki Efandis thought she was smarter than the police, but she wasn't.
Her detailed plan will be her downfall. The goodnight text messages reveal more than she hoped.
George and Vicki may have only lived 5 minutes apart from each other, but what Vicki didn't realise when she sent these text messages, that their cell phones used different towers to send messages.
The night of the murder, one tower, the one near George's home, transmits both text messages. And there's something more. Police tracked down the source of the kerosene.
The kerosene that she used, which was something like 28 litres, had all been bought in one go quite some time before the actual murder. So that also pointed to the police believing that it was premeditated as well.
Vicki is arrested, but claims she's innocent. The jury doesn't believe her. In November 2008, Vicki Efandis is convicted of murder and sentenced to 24 years. She is incarcerated in the Melbourne Women's Prison.
The only motive that the police or anyone could find in Vicki Efandis' action was pure, unadulterated greed. She wanted what he had.
Vicki Efandis is a heartless sociopath. She is a user and abuser of people. The only thing men meant to her, especially George, was a big, fat payday.
These women looked innocent, but were dangerous to love. Regina and Margaret DeFrancisco executed a kind-hearted soul. Laura Fair taught her lover the price of breaking promises. And Vicki Efandis burned her man alive for his money. These deadly women seduced their way to murder. They bury the boyfriend